All right, what's going on, everybody? Welcome to the Tuesday Power Hour. I've got a special guest for you guys here today. You can see him right here next to me. Yeah, Mr. Dom McShane. Thank you so much for being with us here today, Dom. How's everything going for you?
Happy to be here. Everything is well. Can't complain. It's a great time of the year. So thanks for having me.
Oh, you bet, man. It's good to have you on the call. I want to, go ahead. So today, just so you guys know, we are going to be doing our typical questions, answering you guys' questions on the call. But I wanted to spice it up a little bit, bring on somebody who I really respect. He's done an amazing thing, something that I don't see a lot of agents doing. When they're getting first into the business, yeah, he's humble, so he'll say, oh, it's no big deal, whatever. But honestly, Dom, like what you've done, is something that I talk to agents all day, every day. I have for the last decade, and a lot of agents try to do what you've done. But they haven't been as successful as you have, and so what that is Dom has come into the industry, in the real estate industry. He's still a relatively new agent, and he came in with a full-time job, full-time career that he's been pursuing now for a while. And he came into real estate part-time, and he's a capping agent officially here at EXP. He capped his first year with EXP, which means that he is a successful, very successful agent, and he's doing it part time. And so I really respect that, Dom. But that's just my side of it. Why don't you share real quick, with everybody, a little bit about your story, how you got here, and tell us a little bit about your real estate journey.
Sure. Well, again, my name is Don McShan, and I currently live in Temple, Texas. Lived in Waco for a while, and my previous career in industry, and which is still kind of my career, is in marketing and PR. Also did some sales roles, in particular, in between, so everything for working at Apple, Verizon, and so forth. And most recently, being in more of a marketing consultancy role for a university here in Texas. And ultimately, I would say the very big, I guess, light bulb that kind of ignited in me, that really sparked my real estate journey, was just navigating COVID and not necessarily knowing what job security was going to look like. Fortunately, I was able to, continue my gainful employment and so forth. We didn't have any necessarily changes that impacted me in particular. However, I still wanted to grow my own business. I also had a really big goal to eradicate all of my credit card debts. I wanted to be credit card debt free. So that was kind of the initial prompt. And I felt like I had the sales training, I had some of the marketing knowledge and know how to really be able to invest in myself and not just necessarily utilize those talents to advance organizations. So that was my initial piece. And I started off at EXP. EXP was my first brokerage. I did some research before I actually identified a brokerage, and it really came down to Keller Williams or EXP. And I really love the EXP model. I love the opportunities to build wealth, which was a very differentiating factor. And I love technology, so I know the metaverse is common now. We see more of it, but it was interesting to be connected to EXP before the metaverse even had its name. Those were some of the pieces that really attracted me to EXP in particular. And so far, it's been great just being able to have a team to lean on, which is also like, when I have conversations with many other agents, they're like, oh, you're kind of like a lone wolf. And I'm like, well, I'm not really a lone wolf. I have a very large team, which I feel like actually adds value to the experience. Just to have access to so many different people in different markets and regions with so many different experiences. So I feel like that's been a significant piece that's really contributed a lot to my success. So March 1 will be my anniversary year at EXP and in real estate, and excited to see what we're going to be doing for this next upcoming year. Sophomore
Awesome.
year.
That's right. Sophomore year. Love it. Well, thank you so much for agreeing to be on the show, Dom. And, one of the things that, we do, and I think you've seen, you've been a part of these. So, we've got a lot of agents that have, put in their questions as far as just things they might be dealing with in their business right now, how to kind of scale their business, take it to the next level, or just issues they might be encountering as they go. And a lot of them, might be new agents. And so that's why I wanted to pull you onto the call, because, I can answer the questions usually, but, I mean, sometimes, being that I've been in the business now for almost 14 years, like it's good to get a new agent's perspective too around these questions. And so, I'd love, like, I'll answer some of these questions definitely, but I'd also love for you to, maybe put your spin on it if you've got any kind of different opinions that's helpful, even if it's different than what had to say. So I mean, I think that we can
Yeah,
both
because you're
add
an
some
old
value.
head now, Kyle.
I know, man. I'm like, it's weird that it's like, I'm the old one on the business, but yeah, I'm only 35, and I already feel like an old man in the business, So, but shoot, it's so many new, young, and up and coming agents now that are coming in and just super, surprising me, and I'm like, oh my gosh, I remember when I got started in the business, I was 22, and it was intimidating. It was like, oh my gosh, who's going to buy a house from me? I'm a 22-year-old kid, and I'm helping 40, 50, 60-year olds out, and I'm like, they're not going to want to listen to me, and but sure
Mm.
enough, you find your way, and here we are today. But it's always fun to see that. And now it's like I love just being able to give back, like share my journey with agents and let them know it's entirely possible to be successful at, as long as you put your mind to it, and you work hard. I mean, it does. I'm sure you've seen, especially because it's not just your end all be all. You're holding a couple different hats. You've put in a lot of work this last year. I would venture to say, huh, Dom?
Yeah, I'm tired. As you know, anytime Kyle and I talk, I'm like, man, I'm tired, which is part of the, you got to prevent burnout. So I don't know if we're going to talk about that,
Oh yeah.
today before we get into it. But leveraging technology, systems, and people to also, grow your business, but to also, protect your peace, protect your time, and
That's
really
right.
make it more of an enjoyable experience.
That's right. That's right. Well, cool. Well, guys, as we're getting going, I've got some questions here that people have put into the comments here, either from the last one that we did and we never got a chance to answer those, or they've chimed in, either emailed me or put something in our Facebook group. And so if you're watching this call though and you've got questions, put them in the chat, put them in the comments, and whether you're watching on Facebook or on YouTube, and we will get to those questions. And so, but before we do that, I'll go ahead and get kicked off with some of the ones that people have already asked, and we'll start there. So the first question has to do with, I guess, driving traffic to an open house that doesn't allow signs in the neighborhood. So I think this person's encountering, either the neighborhood doesn't allow the signs, or maybe it's I don't know if it's the city, the county, or whatever. But I've experienced this actually before here in San Antonio. I don't know, Dom, have you ever experienced that with a neighborhood that wouldn't allow signs?
Not necessarily no signs at all, but I
Yep.
have experienced it to where it's very limited. So it may only be like one sign only on the property. So you couldn't do any type of directional signage,
Yep.
throughout the community and so forth. So that's been the challenge.
Yeah, I think that's kind of what this person's asking. And so, in that particular case, do you have any workarounds, or, as far as what you would do in that particular instance? If you can only put one, say, at the house, how do you still get, your traffic to that open house if that's the case?
I mean, one aspect is always, leveraging and pushing social media is always a great piece, especially even if you think about different options. So I remember Jamie just kind of sharing some pieces of doing the virtual open house. So for any listen that I do have, or even that I work, doing a 360 virtual tour as well. So one, just to have that as an additional option, if feel that you won't get the same visibility of the random folks that may just catch signage, you can do some targeted social media advertising and direct traffic to the 360 tour, and I market it as an event on Facebook, and those typically do very well. And you can also create a particular link that's directed to your lead generation site, so you're also getting that information as far as capturing those details, and they get to tour it virtually. And you can also tie in the information to, like, hey, come see it in person, to try to target those as well. So I would definitely utilize that. And if there's any way that you can add some type of differentiators, this is kind of like borderline depending on what the specific regulations are, but it can be like a very simple balloon, a blank balloon, or a ribbon or something. If you're able to kind of put something like that along throughout the community or on stop signs and so forth, and even make it like a fun marketing thing as you share, follow the yellow ribbons, like the yellow brick road,
Yep.
to the open house, and, like, play on the theme of that. So those would be initial things that would come to mind for me.
Cool. Yeah, one of the biggest ones that I've done, as far as, because like here in San Antonio, there's an area called Stone Oak, and they're pretty particular. Like, you'll get your signs taken up. Nobody reports you. I mean, so the worst thing that can happen if you do put up your signs, which some of the people say it's worth just taking a shot at it. Like, even if the HOA or neighborhood, I mean, typically, you're either going to get them taken away, so then you're out whatever the cost of those open house signs were, or they're going to call you and say you need to come pick them up. In which case, then of course you'd have to go and pick them up. So I mean, that's like kind of the worst that could happen. So a lot of times I've heard people say, just put them up. It's easier to ask for forgiveness than it
Forgiveness.
is permission, right? And so that's one of the things. But I actually don't even think you necessarily need to do it. Just like Dom said, I mean, there's a lot of ways now with online. Like that's where most people are going to see your open house from. There's still a lot of drive around traffic, and for those, I would say definitely still try and hit the main streets in that area. Like even if you can't hit the neighborhood, try and hit the main streets. And now keep in mind though, if they're main streets and people are moving real fast, the amount of information you want to share is going to be much less, right? So maybe just put put in big text what the address is, right? Because then people nowadays they can just
Mm.
throw that into their mapping app and get there. And so you might just put a big open house sign with the address, and that's it, and then let them map it to find it. So that's one of the things that you can do and put that along the main road. The other thing that you can do is you can get real strategic and same thing where you just put the address on your open house signs, but find the feeder neighborhoods for some of these like move up neighborhoods. Let's say you're doing open house. It's in like a $300,000 neighborhood, or something where people are going to be moving up. Either find like where those people are moving from. If there's a neighborhood like that's in like 150, 200, 250 price range that people tend to move up in, and hit those neighborhoods up with the open house signs, with the address and the date, right? Like Saturday from 12 to 3 at this address, and then let them, it's almost like putting out like a mini billboard for that open house. It's not going to direct them where to go per se, like like a directional would in a neighborhood, but it will get awareness around it, just like if you're doing it on social media. So you definitely can do it on social media. I highly recommend Facebook. Make sure that it's in your MLS, because usually your MLS will syndicate out to like Zillow, Realtor.com.
Which a lot of people find it on Zillow.
Yep, exactly. You got to make sure it's on Zillow. So if it's not syndicating automatically from your MLS, make sure you're manually putting it in on Zillow. That's super important. So yeah, so I think that's kind of going to be your biggest, best bet. You can run ads to like a post that you put on your Facebook business page. If you really want to, try and pay and get more people out there, there's all sorts of things that you can do. So I mean, the signs, I wouldn't let that hinder you. Like if you're like, oh, I don't want to do an open house because I can't put signs in the neighborhood. Don't let that stop you. There's many other ways that you can do it. You just got to get a little crafty. So
Right.
um,
And I would also add QR codes if you're going to do like, a sign or something like that that may be a bit further away. You can still have a QR code and you can link that either to the details on a Facebook page or whatever system that you're using, or you can tie it directly to a Google Maps. So it can be like, you can say, hey, here's a direction. So to try to make it as easy as possible for folks that may be interested. So
yep.
definitely get creative with QR codes.
Yeah, for sure. I would say more people are, I remember when QR codes kind of were still, first kind of coming out, or when they first were starting to get known, and people were like, it's like weird. They weren't really getting, but now more and more, I think people are getting, pretty used to using them. So yeah, definitely QR codes are good, and you may want to think a lot of times people are like, well, but do I have to do a QR code then for every single like listing, or, and then like changing your signs for every single listing or whatever, open house. And you don't, right? Like let's say that you created like a landing page or something. You had something where you consistently listed the new open houses on that particular page. Well, then just make that QR code, land them on that page, so that way as you're changing out open houses on that landing page, because that's easy to do, you don't have to change all of your signs that like are pretty physical, right? Like, and you don't want to have to constantly be going through those. So keep that in mind, if that's something that you're thinking about and you're wanting to use technology. If you are doing like signs, open house signs, and you want to change out the address, like if you're using that strategy where like you're putting them on the feeder roads or you're putting them in like the feeder neighborhoods, then you might just have to get familiar with like a good sticker shop, like somebody that can actually make you some vinyls, and then just get comfortable with like having them print out vinyls for you with the address big and bold, and slap that on your open houses every time you're doing that. If you're consistently
Mm.
doing open houses in neighborhoods that don't allow you, directionals. If you get directionals, then just get the typical left, right, straight, whatever, and point them to get to your home. But it's still, I even still think it's good practice to put the actual address on your listing fly, or your directional signs anyways. But it just takes more work to have to constantly change those out. So You know, it's all in preparation. So, but yeah, that's where again though. I mean, I think the easiest thing nowadays is just getting it online because that's a lot easier than having to swap out signs and get real organized from that standpoint.
Mm.
But
And now,
um,
and now they do have dynamic QR codes, so you can actually change them.
oh, nice. Oh,
Although typically those aren't free.
okay. Well, hey, there you
That's how
go.
they get you. Like, you
Yeah.
start off with the free code, it's static, but you pay whatever, $1, $2 or whatever, but then you can change it over time.
Nice. Well, hey, sometimes, man, simplicity is worth it, right? Like it's worth the extra cost. So, like, I mean, versus, I mean, you're gonna have to pay to, swap out QR codes if you're not using the dynamic ones, right? So, like, yeah, that might be worth looking into. I didn't even know that. So, dynamic QR codes, awesome. Good
Yep, yep.
suggestion there. All right, cool. So here's the one. Here's the one. I thought this was kind of funny. Somebody had asked how to deal with unhelpful family or friends that are giving bad advice to your client. So like let's say that like you've got a client, we've all dealt with this. I'm sure Dom, you've probably even had this where it's like it's your client, but they're listening to somebody that's like not a professional, it's a family or a friend or someone and they're like, "Oh, like you shouldn't offer this or you should offer less or this type of thing." Maybe they've even killed deals for you like at it like, like an inspection comes back and it's like what do you do in those situations? Where maybe it's happened one time or maybe it's happening continually. Like, do you need to address it? Like, and if so, how do you address it? Have you ever experienced anything like that, Dom?
Yeah, something similar. And my typical strategy is to focus on the front end. So actually doing a very thorough buyer consultation or seller consultation. So as we talk about, do you want professional advice? Because you will have information, you will have market, you will have the news. We have access to all this info and so forth. But when we have a conversation, do you want my professional advisement if you're going to be working with me? So it's still decisions are up to you all, but how I present decisions are helpful. And I feel like that in one way is an easy way to kind of mitigate some concerns because now we can always go back to that initial conversation that we had as far as setting those expectations. Other aspects, depending on the scenario, is attempting to invite people in. Depending on how close of a relationship that they may be a part of, to the parties, inviting them into the conversation, but also firmly stating, but this is your decision. You can have feedback from a lot of others, but you're going to be the one that has to live with these decisions, not necessarily everyone else, even me. So I can still provide you information, I can give you insight, and I can give you maybe advisement. But ultimately, the decision is yours, and I will follow through on your, whatever your decision is.
Yep. No, that's perfect advice. Yeah, and that's actually one of the things I was gonna say is like if you get somebody that's consistently in that person's ear, is try and pull them in. Like if they're obviously looking at that person as an advisor, even if you try and like shoot that person down or discredit them, that may actually hurt you more than it's good, right? So like
Mm-hmm.
invite them in and say like, hey, if this person, obviously that they have an opinion, let's get them on a Zoom call, let's get them on a three-way phone call, and that way, because like when I think what usually happens is there's that disconnect, like that person doesn't know who you are, that trusted advisor or whatever, like the your client knows who you are, but that person, so maybe there's like this thing of like they don't trust you, so they're giving this advice thinking they're trying to help their friend. But if you get them into the call and they start to see like, hey, this is a professional, I think at that point maybe they'll start to just give you the benefit of the doubt and not be trying to go anti you. So that's like the first thing. And
Mm-hmm.
I agree with you there. The second thing too is like, really trying to use data to your benefit, right? Like, if it comes down to
Let
like
the
an
data tell the
offer,
story.
yeah, if it's like an offer or if it's like what you should be listing your home at or whatever, and somebody's like, you know, saying something different, a family or friend or whatever, if you've got the data and you can back it up, that's going to go a lot further than, this friend who's maybe just giving advice based off of nothing, right? Like off of just what they think. And so, you got to back it up like with data. And so if somebody thinks like you should be offering less on a house, like, oh, well, you should offer, let's say the friend's like, oh, you should only offer, 50 grand less or, nobody pays full price. Or, how some people say these things or it's like, well, nobody pays full price. It's like, well, no, actuality, like, let me show you the last, 12 sales that have been in this neighborhood and how many of them have gone for full price or above asking, right? Like if you can show them that
Mm-hmm.
type of stuff, um, it's almost like you need to educate your client good enough to the where they could go back to their friend and say, well, actually, I thought that too, but turns out like, here's the data, like, and then it's like, okay, now I think if anything, that friend that's giving them the advice might be like, oh, I didn't realize that or whatever. So yeah, you gotta arm your client, right? Cause they're going to get information from everywhere. And so I think
Mm-hmm.
that's really, really key. So, Cool. All right.
And
Well,
I
we
would
got.
say that could even be an opportunity, not to
Oh
like
yeah.
continue on with the same question, but
Yeah.
I think that could be a great opportunity, a new lead to,
Yep.
connect with them. So don't necessarily say, hey, you're wrong, but hey, tell me more. Like, I try to do a little banter and make it funny or hilarious, even if I'm actually quite annoyed. I just laugh away my pain. I'm like, ha ha ha, you're so funny. You're so annoying right now. But you just try to build a relationship and rapport, and that could even be an opportunity follow up with that same individual. And I was like, yeah, we were connected when I was working with someone else, and we were able to kind of build that rapport. So take it as an opportunity too.
That's right. Very good. I love that. All right. So now we got a couple of questions coming in the comments. So I'm going to start. We'll start answering some of these questions. Let's see. We got Maria. She asks, "Is it ever worth putting a backup offer in this greater Houston area?" So that's where Maria's at in Houston, where multiple offers are submitted with 0 days on the market on HAR, Houston Association of Realtors. What are good offers in this market? All right, so good question, Maria.
Hells to the yeah.
Yeah, yeah. I'll let Dom, if you want to go ahead and respond to that one first. I got my opinion too. So
First off, absolutely backup offers, because that's the benefit of a backup offer, especially if they're still in the option period, because things happen, things change, and given the market, at least in my market, we see a lot more folks that are willing to bid and offer on a home, and they may have multiple offers out on homes and get both of them accepted, and really kind of decide, hey, which one do we really want? Oh, we really want to go with this one. So it wasn't even anything that was related to the inspection or anything like that. It was literally the buyers just changed their mind or they went with another property. But being a backup, it doesn't have to go back on the market now. Your client is already there. So if they want it, like, go for it, go for the backup, because not many people will do that. So that's one way to mitigate a lot of competition. Now, granted, typically if you're a great listing agent, you're going to utilize the backup offer as a way to pretty much say, hey, we're not going to negotiate with the current offer that's accepted when it comes to negotiating repairs. So they're a lot more likely to continue on and execute and close the transaction. However, hey, you got to pull out all the tricks right now. And
yep.
as far as like what's a good offer, I would definitely recommend utilizing the Texas market. What is it? Texas Realtors Market Viewer for your particular county to see like what's moving, and also review the stats in your MLS. Like, I feel like that's a particular area in most MLS that folks don't go to visit. But go look at the stats and go look at the sold data. So when you go through and you click through the sold data, you can see, okay, well, what did this close at last month or yesterday? They finally closed. What was the offer? How much was it over? Were there any concessions? How many days did it take to close on this particular home? And you can be pretty specific when if you're looking for a particular home or in a particular community, go look at the sold data, and that will tell you these are the offers that are winning, and this is what they were.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, and I mean, and there's really no one good offer. I mean, everything depends on a lot of different factors. Like what's the type of financing your client's using. Like what is are they contingent? Are they non-contingent? Like there's all sorts of things you have to factor in, and in certain things that might be like a strike against that potential offer means you might need to bump up what you're doing to go against some of these other offers, especially if you're in a competitive price range. Obviously every price range is different. I'd say like anything under 400 right now, like in the Texas market, like is super like super hot. Like a lot of people are still, noticing like multiple offer situations and stuff. The higher you go in the price points, there's less of that. There still can be, just depending on how hot the property is, but typically as you go higher and higher, so you got to also take that into account. Like what price range is your clients looking at? A lot of times, I mean, that's the catch 22 you get in, is you get clients, and let's say they're pre-qualified for 350, and they want to look at $350,000 homes, and of course the ones that they like are always like the nicest, the hottest properties that are going to always have multiple offers. Like, hey, maybe we need to bump you down to 325. Like, let's look at these homes. That way you have power to go above and beyond what the listing price is. If you are starting to see, like what Dom said, that in the comps are showing you that homes in that neighborhood or whatever that area are going routinely above offers or above asking, then you might have to do that. But at the end of the day, yeah, it all comes back to the comps to make a good offer. Like it really, the like almost now, so the listing price is irrelevant in today's market. It really comes down to like the comps. If somebody's asking 325, but all the comps are 350, like I'd say offer them 350. Like offer what the comps show, that they're comfortable paying, and be confident in your offer. That way, it's like whether you get outbid or you don't, you feel good knowing that, hey, I did the best that I was willing to do on this property. You know, like if the comps show that it's 350, and then your clients say, hey, I'm willing, to go a little over like 355 or whatever. So now you're going above the comps. It don't matter if the person was asking 300 or 340 or whatever. If the comps show that other similar homes in that neighborhood for that square footage were 350, and they're going above, or let's say they even offer 350, then it's like, and they don't get it. Well, hey, that's what that it wasn't meant to be on that particular one, like, or if they
All
go
right, that was the highest and best.
right. And that's how you should treat it, especially if you're losing a lot of deals. Like, tell the person, like, what's the highest that you're willing to go with, that, like, if you lose it, you're not going to be sad. You're not going to second guess yourself and be like, oh man, like if I would have just given 5 grand more, 10 grand more. Like, if you're thinking that, you should just give 5 grand more or 10 grand more right now. If you know that you're in a multiple such situation, multiple offer situation with a new home on the market. So,
And I even add a strategy that I typically use. I try to ask clients on a scale of 1 to 10, how would they rate it?
yeah,
So, I mean, in this current market, 8 out of 10, that means we're writing a competitive offer. But if we ever get to like a 10 out of 10, they're like, I mean, this is a 10 out of 10. I'm like, well, I mean, that means we're all in. Like
yep,
in this market with limited inventory, and this is a 10 out of 10. That's my encouragement to go with your true highest and best. But also, I know you were mentioning, Kyle, other pieces of the offer, because if I'm representing a buyer, I don't necessarily want to throw away their money. So I want to first make sure that we're doing all of the things that are not necessarily costing them money to make a stronger offer. One of those being a very short option period. So during last summer, it was a crazy time, especially in Waco. Oh my God. So like, I mean, we're talking 3-day option periods, but I would already have my inspector. I've already kind of told him, hey, tentatively hold this, date or whatever for tomorrow. They're going to be reviewing offers tonight. Can you make it happen? So, hey, if the offer does get accepted, we're going to go ahead and move forward with the inspection the next day. Hey, we decide to negotiate repairs in 1 to 2 days. That can be very appealing to a seller because things are going to move quickly. So even if they do need to put it back on the market, they'll know, if this is a Sunday, they'll know by Wednesday.
yep,
So that's one piece, and that doesn't necessarily cost anything extra. So that's always appealing. I always encourage my current clients right now in this market, bump the earnest money up, especially if you're not going to be, we don't have any seller concessions. It's not really a thing now when it comes to closing costs. So if your closing costs are going to be, $4,000 or $5,000, go ahead and put that down as earnest money.
yep.
Now, as an agent, you got to really be on your dates, deadlines, and contingency. Because if
Mm-hmm.
you tell somebody to put down $4,000 or $5,000, you got to be on it. You cannot be like, oh, the option period actually ended yesterday. That's
Yeah.
that's pretty significant. So I kind of take that risk and responsibility, but it works, and it's
Yep.
worked so many times where folks are saying like, "Hey, y'all's earnest money was really it was high.
Yep.
It wasn't even the highest offer, but you came with it. Great lender. Your offer was written well, and a short option period,
Yep.
and that's what won the offer."
Have you ever worked on, like, as far as like with the lender getting like a full loan approval, like prior, like to where it's not just like a qualification letter. I mean, it's like actual, like, hey, they're fully loan approved. So that way when you go in, you could actually remove your financing contingency. You know how like a lot of people put in like a 20-day, 25-day financing
Mm-hmm.
contingency, and like that's a little nerve-wracking for a seller, because it's like, well, shoot, even if they go past option, like a lot of times people can just use that to get out of the deal. Have you worked with that as far as trying to remove that or reduce it or anything like that to try and help win an offer?
Yeah, I always keep it in there, but pretty much, and I communicate that the buyer's already DU underwriting
Yep.
approved and so forth, or I mean, full underwriting approved as far as the lender,
Yep.
or excuse me, the buyer.
Yep.
So pretty much, they're just waiting on a property. The lender's just waiting
Yep.
on a property to plug in. So I'll communicate that more so via email
Yep.
to the listing agent, but I will reduce or I at least present it and connect with clients to make sure they're comfortable with it, but reduce the number of days. So like I'll go as low as 7 days.
Yep. Nice.
7 days
Nice.
for the financing contingency,
Cool.
and stacking loan programs. I'm kind of giving a little bit too much of my sauce here,
Oh.
but depending on different programs, it's been helpful to stack some of the assistance programs. So specifically in Texas, we have T-Shack, and I work with a lot of VA clients. So VA loans are zero down payment already. But most folks don't know is working with the right lender, you can stack some of the down payment assistance programs. So what you can do is, say for instance, a VA offer, if they qualify for down payment assistance, we can still apply for it. And so they have that, and that can either be extra funds that they can use toward their closing costs, or that can allow them to do a little bit of an appraisal waiver of some sort. So hey, if it comes in lower, we're willing to pay an extra 8,000. And if we're already looking at comps, because a lot of sellers are worried about the appraisal. So if we looked at comps, the buyers say, hey, we feel like this is a good price or whatever, and then we have the conversation. But based off of how the appraiser looks at this, it could be within this range. But if you are able to put that in there, well, hey, we'll go to up to 10,000 because our closing costs are already covered. So that was money that we had saved for our closing costs anyway. That's another way to make a very strong and compelling offer.
That's a huge point right there, Dom. I love that, man. I hope enough people hear that, because yeah, that's so important, is being able to have that ability, especially with like a VA offer or sometimes even FHA offer, because a lot of times they'll say, oh well, right now these appraisals are coming back so crazy, and their sellers are nervous, they don't want to accept offers like that. But if you can say, hey, look, we're already, this deal, we're going to do an appraisal waiver up to this amount, that's going to really go to strengthening your offer. So great point there. All right, let's jump into the next question. Carissa, she says, what have you had success in regarding community events and involvement? So, as far as community events and involvement, I will first off say I think they're definitely, a great opportunity to take advantage of. It depends on your overall marketing strategy. Like there's some people that like they want to do that type of thing. Like that's just, in their nature. They like being around a lot of people, and like, maybe they're outgoing or whatever. And they're, belly to belly meeting people. Some people, if you're like an internet lead person or whatever, you might think like, oh, I don't want to do that. And that's the beautiful thing about real estate, is like, you can really get leads and make this business work a number of different ways. You got to play to your strengths. And so, if you are that type of person that you love to like put things together, like do actual physical events, I've had a lot of success doing them in my business. And I'm not even like a naturally outgoing, like out, doing the event type of thing person, but they really like, I did a quarterly happy hour for all of like my past clients, and even some of my current prospective clients. I would allow them to come as well. I'd invite them. That way they could kind of get to see like, hey, these are some of my past clients. They would start talking amongst each other, be like, oh yeah, I worked with Kyle, it was great, experience this and that or whatever. And that helped me so much, getting to secure some of these deals, to push them forward. And then, yeah, to get new people there, because the cool thing about these community events and involvement is, let's say that you set one up and it's like 2 months from now, right? Well, now you have a reason for everybody that you come in contact with for the next 2 months, or maybe you didn't even come into contact with them, but you want to like purposely go reach out to some of maybe your past client, or, just people you've got in your database. Now you have a reason, you can invite them to that, right? So for that reason alone, I think they're super helpful. But then also, as long as you advertise it right, and you push it out there, you're going to get a cold audience, people that may not already be familiar with you, that are going to show up, and then potentially get some leads. So that's my thought about it. Dom, what's been your experience? Have you done much of that, or what are your thoughts about it?
So thus far, at least starting off, I think I was trying to go to things that I didn't necessarily care about when it came to community or like just local events, just to network in the sense of doing the work. I went through trainings and they were like, you should always be out there engaging and networking and so forth. I ain't necessarily like it. And again, like you shared, the great thing about being a real estate agent or a real estate, entrepreneur, is you get to develop your business however you would like. So now I choose to do as much as I can to go to events that I am actually interested in. So sometimes I may be tired, but I'm like, that seems like a pretty cool event. I really do like art, so I'm gonna go there and I'm gonna network. And a lot of times, like that's just a piece. So I'm not even necessarily going and represent. We don't even have to talk about real estate. And I think that's one of the biggest things that can be off-putting for some people. You can share, your profession as you talk about just learning and so forth and getting to know people, but don't necessarily belabor that point. So just really just talk and get connected. And I always try to either follow them on social media, and that's the key. I utilize my social media as like a billboard. So I'm like, oh my gosh, yeah, whatever. You're on Instagram. Let me follow you on Instagram. So I don't even have to mention I'm an agent if it doesn't necessarily come up in conversation. But now they're a part of my system. So now they will have, I'm going to ideally make an impression on them. And then if there were things to follow up on, being able to do that. And also, I have my system set up to where whenever I save a contact's number in my phone, it automatically is imported into my KV Core, my lead gen system. So that allows me to kind of keep track, because sometimes you can forget all these people that you're meeting. And I was like, oh yeah, oh yeah, oh yeah. So when I have time just to go back and review and just kind of look at them, do some outreach later on, that's super helpful. I am planning my first event, and that's going to be in February. on February 20th. So we'll see how it goes. But again, it was pretty organic, something that I really wanted to do already, and I already kind of had the connections. So we're doing a Buy Black the Block, which is like a black homeownership workshop seminar, working with a local barbershop who's also the barber is my client, and he does a lot of great community events. He's pretty involved. He's a community developer and influencer. Also has a cool food truck that's now at the barbershop on Sundays. So it's pretty litty. I like going there. He has a DJ out there. So he was saying, it was a great opportunity because he was like, well, if you bring people on Food Box to the Food Box Sunday, you can use the inside of the building. I don't care. I'm like, okay, well, you already have people that are coming there. And I like coming to Food Box Sunday, so I'm gonna be here anyway. So now I can come here, get my food box on Sunday, and we can have a candid conversation talking about the home ownership process, equity, and how appreciation works, and really just being able to connect work. And that's that niche and community that's already kind of developed.
That's
So
awesome.
for me, that's kind of my positionality of doing things that I'm already interested in or I would want to be at anyway.
That's such a true statement. Is like, yeah, if you're going to be doing these events, like do something around your passion, like outside of real estate necessarily, like tie in what you already like to do, the people you like to be around, and like so the cool thing about that is twofold. Like one, you're passionate about it, so you're going to want to keep doing it. But number two, the cool thing too is you can find opportunities of things that might already be taking place that you can then become like a sponsor or like a co-host with them, right? To where it's not all on your shoulders, to put everything together, and you can tap into it pretty easy. And even if you got to pay, to help sponsor or get these things together, that's so, that's fine, because then you're going to tap into their network, people that they might have, invited anyways, and expose, yourself to it. So like, but if you're doing it around the things you're passionate about, you're going to find those opportunities a lot easier because you're going to know the who's who in that realm, right? So yeah, so I think if you're going down that path where you're doing like events and stuff, doing it around what you already like doing, and the people you're already around is so important. So cool. All right, let's
And then I
jump.
think even if it's a bus, you can be like, well, at least I had fun doing some. We
Yeah,
had some great music that day. It was cool. The
that's
food
it.
was good.
And that's the cool thing
Even
too
if it was a
about,
bus.
yeah, even if it's a bust, it's like, some of these things, like, yeah, I've done a lot of events that have been a bust, right? So, but that's anything you do for the first time or the first few times, you're going to have some busts, right? Like not everything is just, fire right away. And so, don't let that, that fear stop you. And so, even if it happens, don't worry about it. And even if you're afraid to get started because of that, I would say don't worry about it. Like you do an event, you might spend some money or whatever. You just keep doing it. If you really like to do that, you will get eventually, you'll get known. People will start to hear about the event the next time, and it'll get bigger and bigger and bigger the more consistent you are. With doing an event. So I think those are always, the consistency is one of the most important things. So Brent asks, Dom, lots of new agents have other full-time, part-time jobs. How do you time block to be so successful also in real estate?
Great question. A lot of folks ask me that, and I say some part I'm crazy, but also I was on an EXP training actually, and one of the guys was talking about his journey from a dual career agent to a full time agent. But one of the key pieces that he mentioned was that not identifying yourself as a part time agent or a sometime agent, and I really took heed to that. So when I say dual career agent, I mean, do a career. Like every day I'm doing real estate. So I'm doing real estate probably more than I'm doing my regular job. Because when I'm not at work, I'm off work. Like it turns off. Don't X me. Don't call me. Like I'm done. But real estate, I'm always thinking. I'm always following up. I'm always kind of doing something that can, be growing either myself as an individual that's going to grow my business or just connecting and growing with other folks. So I would definitely say that mentality. And when you think about it like that, that is helpful. But time blocking wise, I always try to make calls into work. I have a 30-minute commute. So that's simply when I make my calls, I'll follow up with clients or prospects. I like to do my prospecting calls then. So, hey, I know you were viewing homes on my website. Just wanted to check in, see, what exactly were you looking for and so forth, or just try to keep folks activated and updated. So leveraging that time whenever I'm commuting, leveraging my lunch break. So I'll have lunch breaks blocked off. I have a pretty flexible job, so I can kind of take my lunch whenever. So between 11 to 1. So I have my Calendly set up to where that time block anybody can book a meeting with me. So sometime if I have, booked up appointments between 11 to 12, 12:30, I just won't have lunch that day, or I'll just sneak off and grab something real quick and I'll eat lunch while I'm doing the rest of my job. So that is, a bit of flexibility that I do get in my current role. Um, and they just thinking about scheduling showings in a strategic way to where I can map out, and you really have to be efficient with your time. So that's where you just like everything has to be optimized when it comes to your systems, your technology, and so forth. And that's why you have to have your calendar set up, have your website set up. I have scripts set up. I have frequently asked question email template. So when people are asking very similar questions, it's a template that's already there. And recently, I've also invested in having a virtual assistant to also have a support system to also help me grow my real estate business, but to also kind of give me some support as I continue to grow, but not necessarily wanting to walk away from my full time job just yet. Because again, some folks are like, "Oh, you should go full time. Go full time." I think you have to think about your overall setup in your scenario. Because in some instances, like I look at and I calculate, well, how much money would I have to, how much value would I have to sell in real estate to fully like have what I would have with both? So now I'm like, okay, I have my W-2 employment, but I also have so now it's kind of side money, but the side money is more than the W-2 side. But if you remove part of that, then now I'm kind of back where I started. So it's like, okay, well, how do I either up my real estate business to where actually it's already two times, anyway, we're getting the
Yep.
calculations and so forth. But to answer the question about time block, being very strategic, have your calendar and leverage on systems and technology, and also do it every day. There isn't a day that you can't do it.
Yep.
You can't be a sometime agent.
That's right. Yeah, I love that suggestion with Calendly. So I mean, if you're not if you're watching this and you don't know what Calendly is, go check that out because it's almost like a forced time block essentially, right? Like that you can give clients, you can or prospective clients leads and let them book on their own accord, and it's already hooked up to your calendar. So as long as you're consistent with putting your calendar stuff in accurately, then yeah, then you don't have to say no to people. So which is nice as a part-time agent or where it's not your full-time gig. A lot of times it's hard when you're trying to schedule things with people and you have to constantly say, oh well, that time doesn't work. You start to like get worried about that. Whereas if you're organized on the front end and you've got calendar, you can say, hey, book a time that works for you. Any of these times you see here is good with me. And it just gives that extra customer service aspect. So I think that's really cool. The other thing I will say, Dom, and I know this about you, but I want you to maybe share this with maybe some agents who are looking to make real estate their full-time thing, or they're thinking about getting into it on a part-time basis to start, is like, I know that you've got a big why as far as like why you even started with real estate. Like I kind of know a little bit about your traveling. I know, that you really, you want to have that freedom lifestyle. And I think that, for you, cause it's been, it's hard work. Like you said, like when you're not working your other job, you're working this job, you're working probably 7 days a week. You're doing all this extra stuff. And it's because you know what the future holds if you do this. And so I think that helps lead you to do some of the things that maybe others might not be willing to do. And so, maybe share just like that mindset as far as like, where you want to go and how that leads you to be more, scheduled and help you to be a part-time agent to where you're eventually hoping to be a full-time.
Right, right. I mean, I think it's when you think about how you can structure your business and more so just planting the seed. So for me, I think on a generational wealth tip, but also like a freedom tip. So when you understand how to build and develop businesses, I think that is and to have it's almost kind of, I wouldn't say a drug, but it's a rush that you receive when you get to determine the decisions of what you do and what you don't want to do, which can sometimes be a challenge. Because sometimes we think, oh, I get to make my own schedule, but it's also like, well, you still need to have a schedule. But you get to determine, how you structure, your life and your schedule. So I think for me, just freedom is a big piece, whether that's time freedom, financial freedom, and so forth. So I'm willing to put in the work now so that I can enjoy the fruits of the labor later on and down the line.
Yep.
So right now is this is the building time. This is the planting time, starting with your foundation. But knowing and understanding, if you start and scale now, you will be able to enjoy more of the time, and then you can live the good life afterwards. So that's the goal. So that's always the mindset toward the madness.
That's right. That's right. Well, very cool. And then we got, let's see, Daniel here. He asks, oops, here while I go up to his actual question. This was in the chat. It says, I'm taking my pre-licensing classes, want to join EXP for all of their amazing benefits they seem to have. I'm worried about not having a brick and mortar office to go into. What's been your experience, Dom? I mean, being new in the business, not really knowing anybody, to get started with it. You're out there, you're not like in San Antonio right by me. You're, a few hours away. How has that been for you, not having like a place where you go into and actually like physically meet with people?
It's never been a barrier or anything. Like again, going back to my calendar, I'll typically connect at coffee shops or so forth, which I feel like is also like more convenient for clients. So whether that's meeting clients at their home or near their office, wherever they work, I feel like you can definitely spin it as a customer service oriented centric piece. Like I want to meet you wherever you're comfortable. And I've never had a client say, no, I really want to meet you in your office. I've never had a client to say that. And we can always connect. And I also do things at showings, just to also again try to be sensitive of my time. So like, hey, we're gonna go on a showing, or if we need to connect and have a meeting, we can talk about it before and after the showing at a place. So we're already going to be meeting in a central place. So leveraging that, and we do have the Regus offices and so forth as well. So if you do need an office to go into, the Regus partnership is great. So it's free, and you get to go in and actually have your co-working space, and you can pay if you want some specific space. And a lot of people, just depending on your area, some folks think that EXP doesn't have a brick and mortar office. It's just not required. But there are, like we have one in Killeen now. So there's a team there, Kristen Winkler. They do have an office. So they have, and she's been super open, like, hey, if you need to come in or pop in or whatever, like, feel free to utilize the space, like super collaborative, which I feel like is another sign to like just the EXP spirit of collaboration without necessarily having to share some of the financial obligations that comes with being responsible for all of that. So for me, I like the flexibility, and I feel like that's where EXP shines. I can be wherever I need to be. So for me, it hasn't been an issue at all.
I love that. All right, cool. So now we got somebody here on Facebook. They just asked, and I think you can answer this one pretty quickly. They said, Dom, did you say that your new contacts in your phone automatically go to KV Core? How? So how are you doing that?
Yes, so there is a way to sync your KV Core with your Google contacts. This is also the same way you can import your Google contacts. So if you haven't done that, I would definitely recommend it because you can set it up to where it imports everybody. So I have them as spears, so like every single contact in my phone. Now you would have had to like save all your contacts to a cloud-based something previously, but that's what I used to do. Um, but that's how it works. So there's also a setting on KV Core, and I'm sure they have a guide or something. But there's a setting where you can have it to where it auto syncs your contacts that you do save to your Google contacts. So now on my phone, I just go into settings and I save everything and I have it set up to where all new contacts are saved to my Google. That's the same Google account that I have connected to my KV Core. So then every new contact goes in as a spear. So I'll go in and I'll update them. And it's also great for like note taking. So if, hey, I met some folks at a networking event, you can be like, hey, try to jot down details that you remember and so forth. So if you did want to reach back out or just thinking about folks that you want to follow up on or follow up regarding particular tasks, again, leveraging the systems and technology. I feel like, we won't go down the other path, but KV Core gets the job done. I think I'm looking at other things, but I don't want to pay for how much other things cost.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm maximizing the functionality of KV Core. It's there if you use it.
That's right. For sure. Very cool. All right. So now here, Jorge asks, how often should you check in with prospects and leads? So that's a good question, Jorge. I will, Dom, I'll go ahead and start this one and then I'll kick it over to you. I think if it's a new lead, you're obviously needing to respond to them ASAP, and you're gonna have to, respond multiple times frequently in the first, let's say week. And what I mean by that is, so speed to lead for internet leads, within 5 minutes is so important, right? Like, if you can get to them, and if you can't, you need to have some automated system that can, right? Like, so fortunately, you can set up things to where, people get a text message, within the first, few minutes. And that way, if you can't call them right away, at least they're hearing from you. That's one of the most important things. But then after that, a lot of times we give up too quickly, right, on internet leads. So let's say you try and call them, when it first comes in, they don't answer, and let's say that was in the morning. I would definitely call that person again, at least one more time that day, if not maybe twice. Like maybe you call them after lunch, and they don't answer, you call them again at like 5 or 30 or 6, like after they might be getting off of work. Because you just never know what the situation is when somebody's on your site or they're seeing your ad or whatever. They might be at work, they might be busy, right? And it takes a couple times, and that first day is so important with the new lead. Then at that point, like if you don't get in touch with them that day, again, I'd call them the next day. I might not call them 3 times that day, but I would definitely call them probably at least once, maybe twice. And so, and then it just kind of, starts to go down a little bit on a scale after that. So within that first week though, I would say it wouldn't be out of the question to call them maybe, at least once a day after those first like 2 days, you might like give up a day, like, the fourth day, the sixth day, but whatever it is, you need to have that system, right? And a lot of these CRM systems will automate that. Like they'll create to-dos for you whenever a new lead comes in to remind you. Cause if you're just trying to like remember all this stuff off the top of your head, like, oh, I need to call this person back or whatever, it's not going to happen. I can tell you that right off the bat. Like, if you're just thinking you're going to, you're going to like, force it to happen, that you're going to call all of these people. Because like the thing is, you got to do, especially with internet leads, you got to do it at scale, right? Like we know the conversion ratio for internet leads is relatively low, right? Like on Facebook, it might be 2%. Google, you might get 5-8%, something like that typically. So that means like 1 out of 20, or if it's Facebook, 1 out of 50. And in order to get those conversion ratios, you got to have a follow-up process, or else that conversion ratio is zero, right? And if you don't have a good setup process to work all of these leads that are coming in, there's no way you're going to remember it by yourself, right? So you need some tool to help you with that. And as long as you've got that, it's not difficult, like to do all these calls. Like I know with KV Core, they've got a dialer system built in. A lot of the CRM systems nowadays, if that you're going to spend a decent amount of money on, will have them. Like KV Core is free with us at EXP, but if you're not, it's it's like a $500 or $800 system a month. But if you're in that price range where you're spending that type of money, most of them are going to have that functionality where they'll have like a dialer built in. You'll have your own company number, all this kind of stuff. Otherwise you can look into like Firepoint. That's another one that's a competitor of KV Core. Chime, Boomtown, all of these are going to have that type of functionality. If you don't, and you're working with something that is maybe not as robust, then of course there's other like add-on systems that you can do that will at least help you with your texting game. So like I would say the order of like follow-up for me goes like phone calls, then texting, then email. Most agents, I would say don't even, have an automated system for email, right? Like, and that's like, you got to at least have like a drip, email for new leads that come in. Once you've gotten responses from people, you want the drip stuff to pretty much go away. And at that point, if you know what they're looking for, if you know their situation, you don't want to hit them with drip stuff unless it's like helpful. Like if you're coming up with content like blog posts or videos, you can push that out to your email audience. But it's those drip ones that like they sound like it's coming from just like a robot, and you're sending it to somebody after you might have just had a great conversation with them. That's where it kills your relationship that you just built. So you want to watch out for that. But let's say that on the phone call standpoint, that's you've got some kind of setup process where it's like KV Core, where it's automatically, you've got your follow-up system. It's adding in to-dos, so that way you need to call through them. And then it's just you're using the dialer to call through all those leads. You can do that stuff really quickly. So it doesn't have to be as complicated as what this all sounds right now. But then there's also another system I use for texting called Agent Legend. And that's basically like setting up drip campaigns for texting, right? So like KV Core, you can text within it. And a lot of these CRMs, you can text within it. The only issue is you can't set up like scheduled texts. Whereas with Agent Legend, you can actually set up like a drip campaign with text messages that'll, go out at a predetermined time. So if you want to text them 2 times when they first come in, and then the beautiful thing is when they respond to it, it turns off the future text. So it's not going to hit them up with, stuff that's not relevant. And so, but yeah, I mean, think of it from
But
that
Kyle,
standpoint.
you can do that in KV Core.
Oh,
I
can
ain't
you
want to cut you off.
with the drip?
Yep.
Oh man, I have not. I've
I
not.
have that set up.
Do you really? Okay, how does that work for you? You getting some good response from it?
Yeah, so I pretty much have campaigns where it's emails and text messages, just depending on the day and the time. And for me, what's worked most successfully for me is to have the text pretty much go out almost immediately within 1 to 2 minutes.
Yep.
Because sometimes I'm not doing something, I'm not able to hop on the phone call immediately. But when I get a text message response, one that shows me, hey, like they're really ready, so they're really active and like they're currently engaged, so I'll make time to follow up immediately. But otherwise, yeah, that
That
was a piece there. But yeah, it
that
just goes in. You can tell it to do a text message or an email, and it
nice.
can
Yeah,
be a part
because
of the same campaign.
I remember I thought it would set up like where you could do one, like the first response was a text message, but then everything after had to just basically be emails, or you could set up like to-dos for phone calls. That's cool that you can now set up like a whole campaign with emails, text, and to-dos for phone calls. Because yeah, that's a game changer right there, man. I have to look back into that because I just kind of started using something else, and then once you're starting to use something else, you're not like seeing if there's updates or differences on the KV Core
Hmm.
side. So yeah, that's awesome, man. I'm gonna have to go pull because the only problem that I was having was then I'd be using KV Core and there's a different smart number on there,
Different
and then
number.
Agent
Mm.
Legend had a different number there, and so yeah, that's gonna totally be a game changer, man. I appreciate that. Very cool. All right, so hopefully, Jorge, that answers your question. Definitely, it's front end heavy. You want to make sure you're getting as much communication up front as you can, and you're responding ASAP, but then also multiple times. And then as they start to become a colder lead or whatever, you can slow it down, but don't stop completely because there's still leads that maybe you didn't get into them in the first week that they were here. But if you
Hmm.
got your drips going, for months on end, they may pop back up, right?
I've
So,
literally seen that. So like
yep.
keeping the drips like 6, 7 months later, like I forgot, and having the behavioral automations on. So for KV Core, you can get notified and even have set things to go out based off of automation. Whatever actions that they do. So like somebody visits your site or looks at a property that they haven't, and I always put everybody on property alerts, which is always super helpful if they're a buyer. So like they may not have responded, they're not answering, but then like they'll start looking at properties. So then the system will automatically reach out to them, or that'll be my cue to follow up. Like, hey, I know you were looking at home. Did you want to go see any? Because I always try to get FaceTime as soon as possible. And I feel like that, for me at least, I feel like that's my differentiator. If it's an online lead, if I can just get in front of you, whether that's on Zoom, whether that's on FaceTime, or I'll even do one showing without being under, agency representation agreement, just so I can, have that face to face interaction. Because after that, I feel like the relationship is there to where it makes it easier to convert.
Yep. And then and we answered that kind of on like a new like internet lead potentially perspective, or like if it was an open house lead or something. But like now taking that from like a sphere of influence, the one thing I'll say there is I would reach out to my sphere, everyone in my database, which I've got like roughly about 220 sphere of influence, like past clients, people I personally know in my database, and I'd reach out to those 220 people with a phone call every quarter. So like just because again I would do those quarterly events, so I always had something when I did connect with them to invite them to, but then I could also just catch up,
Mm.
stay top of mind. So that was for like a sphere of influence perspective. It was once a quarter minimum for me. And obviously sometimes I'd call them out of the blue if I thought about something or if something was relevant, but I always at least called them once a quarter, even if like I didn't really have anything specific. So that's how often I would check in with my prospects and leads on that perspective there. So cool. I think we got one more question here, and then we'll be at the top of the hour, so we'll sign off. But real quick, if you still got questions, put them in the comments because again, that's what I use to kind of get this call started every week. So I will get to them next week. Those will be the questions we answer first. So definitely, if you're watching this on replay, or if you're still with us right now, put those questions in either the comments or the chat, and we will get to them the following week. And again, we do these calls every single Tuesday at 11 a.m. Central Time. And so definitely, put it on your calendar and make sure you're subscribed to the channel. By the way, give this video a like button if you're liking, bringing Dom on and getting him in here. Let's get that like button going because every week we've gotten more likes than the week previous. And I want to see some love for Dom because I think he's brought in a lot of value on this call today. And so I definitely want to see how many likes we can get this week with him on the call. And I think that we'll definitely be trying to get Dom back because he has been a wealth of knowledge. And so I again just Dom, thank you so much for your time and agreeing to be on the call, sharing those great knowledge
Our
bombs that you have
pleasure.
with us. And yeah, and so that being said, let's go to this last question here from Brent. He says, Kyle and Dom, what are your thoughts on joining a team versus doing the mentor program? So I'm assuming Brent's talking about the mentor program with eXp Realty. And, there's actually a lot of brokerages that have different mentor programs as well. I'm sure a lot of them are different, as far as what they charge, what they do. So I'll speak to the EXP one because that's the one I'm most familiar with. And Dom, you can share too. But so real quick, as far as like what this mentor program is with EXP, and kind of just to give you an idea of what a mentor program might be for other brokerages, is like when you join a company like EXP, our typical commission split is 80/20. When you join the mentor program, let's say you're a new agent here at EXP, if you've done less than 3 transactions in the last 12 months, you'll automatically be enrolled in the mentor program. What you have to do is, one, you do have an additional split for those first 3 transactions that you close with EXP. It's an extra 20%, and that goes to paying the mentor program and the mentor. Um, but what you get is then some agent that's in your local market, they're within a certain radius of you, that's going to be assigned to you to work with you to help you, whenever you get those first few deals. We always have questions like, yeah, you just passed real estate school, but when it actually is showtime and you got that first offer you got to write up, you want somebody there to kind of bounce ideas off of, to help you with it. And then even still, some mentors go, even more than that, where they're actually, hosting trainings. They are, letting you shadow them. I wouldn't say that that's the expectation all the time, but you might just want to find out if, like what you get with that particular mentor. But in general, my thoughts on a team versus a mentor program: one, to get on a team, I would say there's more requirements. You actually, like, when you join a team, it's like it's not automatic. You don't automatically get to go be on whoever's team, right? Like, they gotta agree to want you to be on their team. Um, and so sometimes, teams will say you got to be full time. You might have had to have some production in the past. So if you qualify for that, if you think that you want to do that, and you're willing to give up more of your commission, typically, because when you're on a team, a lot of team leaders, they're going to have you on a 50-50. You might not be on a 40-60 where you're getting 40%. Like, I know teams that are like that. Some are 60-40. So you're going to be on that. Plus, then you typically also, like, at least with EXP, you're going to split out with EXP, 80-20 of whatever your take was on that deal. So, you're going to get less per transaction on a team than if you're solo on a mentor program. But the advantage of a team is you might get, the team leader's probably going to give you some leads, hopefully. I mean, if that's what, if that's their justification for taking their cut, they should be, giving you either some decent leads, training, an office maybe to work at, that type of stuff. And if, like, those value adds are worth it in your mind, then maybe a team is the right fit for you. Going solo with, like, a mentor might be the right fit if you are, like, more kind of like self-accountable. You want to go out there and figure out things on your own. You want to go try things on your own. You're not looking for somebody to, like, give you as much. If you're that type of person, then I think, keeping more of your commission and just having a mentor is probably the right fit for you. So that's my initial thoughts. Dom, I don't know if there's anything different that you want to share or have ideas
No, you
about.
kind of you kind of hit the nail on the head. I went to the mentor program because I was looking at splits and so forth, and I like marketing. So as far as, like, acquiring leads and so forth, I was willing to put in the work to do that, and I feel like I do pretty well. Setting my own goals and holding myself accountable. Although I was somewhat interested in joining a team when I found out that pretty much, I guess, it balances out or something. Like, you could be on a team and then I don't think you have to pay the 20%. I mean, I don't know. It
Right.
goes a different way or something like that. So if
Yeah.
I knew that, I would have tried to go on a team, but there wasn't a team that I was connected with.
Yep.
So that's why I was kind of like, well, I'll do my own thing. I want to build my own brand. I want to build this experience just because I didn't see a team in my area that I felt really connected with. So that was kind of my decision piece. But had I had a team, I feel like I might have started off there because you can
Yep.
always, leave
Leave.
depending
Yep.
on what you sign. But you can always, get your bearings and so forth, and then branch out on your own.
Yeah, yeah, and just, to clarify how that does differentiate is, like, if you are on the mentor program, at least with EXP, you're on a 60-40 split. So you keep 60 and and you give up 40 for those first 3 deals. And then after those first 3 deals, you go to your normal 80-20 split until you cap, and then you go to 100%, right? So, like, that's how it works at EXP. When you go on a team, Dom is correct. You can go on a team and you waive those 3 mentored deals because your team leader essentially becomes your mentor in that instance. But then what ends up happening is, let's say whatever the team agreement is, let's say it's 50-50, you're going to pay that 50-50, and then you also will have that split out with EXP on an 80-20. So let's just say I take a $10,000 commission, for instance. You earned a $10,000 commission. You split that 50-50 with your team leader. So 5 goes to you, 5 goes to them. Then on that, you take 80-20 of that and pay that to EXP. So the 5,000 then becomes 4,000 to you. And then 1,000 of that goes to EXP. And then your team leader, that 5,000 that they took from that commission will also, they have their 80-20 split with EXP. But so from your standpoint, you would have gotten 40% in that case. which is basically like you're getting 40-60. Whereas if you're on the mentor program, it would be 60-40. But again, that's based on a 50-50 split with your team leader. So that could change depending on what that team agreement says. Maybe some teams might be 60-40. They could be less. They could be 40-60. So then you would get even less. So yeah, you just got to look at those numbers and figure out. And then the thing is with the mentor program, that's only 3 deals that you're on a 60-40. Then you go to the 80-20. Whereas on a team, chances are you might be 50-50 for the whole year with them, right? And then the 80-20 up until an $8,000 cap. So you're gonna definitely, no matter which way you slice it, you're probably gonna pay more for the team. But again, I always say it's not about what you're paying. Like if you're not capable, or
If you
I
get the
don't want to say
value.
you're not capable, like because everybody's capable of doing it. But if you're not confident that you're gonna go out there and like generate your own leads, you're not really wanting to kind of like make that big of a leap right away. You want someone that's maybe more kind of gonna be right there with you. Then it's maybe it doesn't matter like what you're paying, because let's say you're getting 100% of zero. Like if you're not going to go out there and get all the leads, that's zero, right? Whereas if you're on a team and they're giving you leads and you're taking all this stuff, even if you're only getting 20, 30, 40% at the end of the day, but they're giving you lead after lead and you're getting all of this experience, that might be more beneficial. So you just have to kind of figure it out. There's no right answer for anybody, but you got to kind of take all of that into account and go from there. So cool. Well, guys, I love it. I thank you so much for jumping on. I hope that this was valuable to you. Again, hit that like button, subscribe to the channel, go follow Dom, guys. He's out there on social. What's the easiest way to connect with you, Dom? Where are you most active?
Pretty much on all the platforms. Instagram is my thing. DMac_the realtor. DMac_the realtor, or DomMcShan.com.
Awesome. Well, there we go. Well, guys, thank you so much. Let me know in the comments if you want to see Dom back on. I'll go ahead and we'll try and make a thing of this, because I enjoyed doing this with you, Dom. Thank you again, and I hope everybody has a great week. We'll talk to you soon.